Okay, so that was smooth. So yeah, my name is Krijn Rijshouwer. I'm a product designer at Framer. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about design tools in general and about Framer. So I'm going to give you a little introduction and about what we think that is going to change in the next couple of years of design. So a little bit about myself. I started building products and designing when I was just like 13 years old. So I just started designing, building products, shipping them, and that was great fun until I turned like 15. And then I joined this agency in the Netherlands called the Creation Lab, and I started there. So that's when I really fell in love with design, and I started really designing a lot. So then, when I got a little bit older, shipped more products, I joined a startup in the Netherlands called Blendle. It's kind of well known there. I think over here internationally, not so much yet. But there I really discovered that prototyping was this new thing, like this new kid on the block, that was very interesting in terms of what you could achieve with it. So you could create these interactive prototypes, and you could take them to your meetings, and they would definitely influence how the meeting went. So I didn't have like a lot of questions. Everything was clear. People were way more eager to get on board with it. So they got way better what I was trying to tell them. And then another thing that came along when I started using that to prototype was that I started solving some problems differently that I was trying to tackle. So that was interesting. And back then, it was still just like Framer.js with a little code editor. So we've evolved the product a lot since then. So to dive into that, we're based in Amsterdam. And we're with a team of 15 people now. And we're creating a design tool for the Mac. Who has heard about Framer? Wow, that's amazing. Almost a lot of people. That's cool. And who actually uses it to prototype or to design? Nice, that's a lot of hands too. That's good. So for the people that don't know it, Framer is a tool for interactive design. And what makes it so cool is that you can use visual tooling with code to create interactive designs. And that's also where it sets apart from the rest. So we use code because it has unlimited possibilities. And here's a little video that gives you a short introduction into Framer. A short overview. Sound. Wait, there's no sound. Let's smooth again. Let's see what's wrong. Is this one? Is the well, I just use this audio headphone jack maybe. Oh, that's probably it. So, yeah. Cool. So yeah, that's a short introduction of Framer if you've never seen it before. So let's just write in and I can highlight some features and stuff, how it works. So Framer has drawing and layout tools. So basically, it feels very familiar to other design tools that you might have already used. So for example, you can easily insert a layer, and then you can basically just draw on a blank canvas with artboards. So we try to do some cool things here, where we try to automatically group your layers, where normally you would, in another design tool, would have to like name all of them, group them, and that's not something we want to spend time on because it's just a waste of time, and waste of time is eventually money. So then next, on the right side, we have a styling panel. So over here we have some really cool styling features that you can do, like shadows, fills, anything that you might already have used in other tools too. A cool thing to note here is that actually this is still secret, so I'm happy that it's live streamed, but today we're shipping like a new feature or like a new performance release. And we're doing some really cool new styling features like blending modes and inner shadows, blurs. So we'll get a lot more complete. So don't tell anybody. That's later today. Then to the next slide. Yeah. So where the real power of Framer kicks in is where we have a canvas that adapts. And that means basically that we can do responsive design by default. So normally in a design tool, you would design something, and it would just be like this thing that doesn't move yet, or isn't really yet has any like smart things about it. But we have an algorithm that tries to figure out how you position things and how it should scale. And like what's cool to see is that it's 99% of the time it's right. So we try to like guess how interaction works just by how you position things, and that actually works. And if you want to change that, you can do that on the top right with our layout tooling. Let's wait until it gets back, and then you can just set like, you see a preview of how it scales with your design, and then you can just play with it. So it's immediately responsive by default, which is really cool. Especially for this era where we have tons of new devices coming out, and we need to support all of them. So this is where Framer excels from other tools mostly, is that we like bringing designs to life. We like interactive design. And we do that with code. So we believe that code is the best way to create interactive designs and the best way to create interactions because it has no limitations. You can create anything that you imagine, which is also the power of our tool. So we've combined that with some visual tooling to make it easier, but also because we discovered that code isn't the best way to basically position something or like draw things. No, it's the best way to do complex interactions. So we combined that with visual tooling, and that ended up being a really powerful combination. It's called autocode. We launched it a while back. So as you can see on the left side, we added some properties, and on the right side, Framer writes the code for us. So you don't actually have to know any coding or things yet before you even start using Framer. So you just enter it and keep your code in sync. So another cool thing that this, like, another side effect that it gave us was that now if you want to learn how to code, like a lot of designers are looking into that, Framer is a great way to get started with that. And that's just a nice side effect that we had with autocode. So we see a lot of new designers trying to learn how to code, and they actually use Framer to do that. So then on the right side, we have like our preview window where you can do like, where you can see your interaction, so you can play with that, and you can go into presenter mode, and if you have like a presentation for your boss or for your client, you can just show off your design immediately. So that's also cool. And you can interact with that. So then the last part where we try to like do the complete designer workflow is collaboration. So when you're doing your designs and you're working with other people or with a team on a product, or you're trying to get word out to your client, you need to share your work. So we made some sharing, like to a cloud dashboard. You can easily share your projects, and then you can share it with your team or like with individual people, or keep it secure to yourself so nobody sees it. That's cool. So let's go into some use cases, how people use Framer. So people use Framer for all kinds of things, and this goes back to the thing that I said earlier, that you can create anything that you can imagine. And we see that the top 1% of designers is mostly using Framer right now, because they are trying to create interactions that are new. They are trying to change the boundaries, and we think that every designer should be doing that. So some cool things, you can go from like simple app flows to creating Facebook Live, which has been designed in Framer. So some cool examples there were, for example, that Facebook had to do user testing because they had to like figure out how Facebook Live, how would people react to that? How would people react to being on a live stream to all of their friends and people in the world? So what they did is they connected an API, because Framer uses code, and you could actually see your own friends popping up. So people reacted totally different to that than just seeing some people that you don't know pop up on your phone. So that's a really cool example of how you can use code and design to do next level things. So another cool example is Framer is used often for web design. So also because it's very similar to it, but you can do some really nice micro interactions, like the Lonely Planet recently redesigned their website, and it's like super lovely. But they did like a ton of micro interactions, And yeah, we see a lot of really cool things like depth, like the Apple TV icons. We see a lot of cool things being built with Framer. And then one cool thing that you can even do is do VR. So with all these new aspects of design coming up, AR, VR, we all don't know how it's going to work exactly yet, but it's going to come. And it's cool to see that you can now also prototype VR stuff in a tool. And that's also possible in Framer. So that all ties back to the thing that we try to achieve, and that is that you can design anything that you can imagine without any limitations. So we believe that, if it works, yeah, we believe that design is interactive. So that there's no difference between prototyping or doing interactive designs. That is just design. That's how design should be. And we can easily validate that if we look at what are we designing for. So we're mostly designing for mobile phones, web browsers, and they all have user input. And if you have user input, then we have to ask ourselves the question, why are we designing with tools that don't handle user input, that are static? They are just static screens, and we don't design for that. So that's an interesting thing, and we tend to miss a lot of things. And I can show you that with a little example. So, for example, the first step in our design process is often to sketch something out. So if you have an idea, quickly make a sketch in our notebook and see how it works. So, or see how it shapes. So over here, for example, I've sketched out this list, and we can order it. And you kind of get an idea of what I'm trying to tell you. So we could kind of call this a low-fidelity design, maybe. Then next, normally now, we would jump into our visual tools, so like Sketch, Figma, Photoshop, and we would basically make a mock-up out of it. So this doesn't tell me a lot. It kind of gives me a little bit of a more clear picture of how what the product should look like, but not really how it should work. So right now, if I ask you for feedback, another side effect of this, if I ask you for feedback, that now you're going to give me feedback on, yeah, I don't really like the colors. I think maybe the shadow should be a little bit different. Maybe the topography of the numbers should be different. And that's not really that interesting if you're a product designer. You're trying to figure out how the product should work. So if we go into like doing interactive design, we start to think about a lot more edge cases. So when should the numbers switch, when the cards go over each other? How should it slam down? Should it go softly? Should it go very hard? That's how our product feels. So all of those things are inclined here. And also, if I now ask you for feedback, you're more inclined to give me feedback on maybe the product should have some buttons to order it or something. So you get way better product feedback than just that we should change the color, because that's really the least interesting thing about creating a design. And most of the time, we've already defined that if we're designing an app or another product. So design tools are kind of stuck in limbo right now. So most tools aren't really ready for this era. So we're all still like doing static design, and all those tools are not really ready for creating interactive work, which is basically what our tools or what our end products are right now. So that results in us all taking a little bit of an easy path. So we're kind of like, okay, it's kind of hard to make something interactive right now, so I'll just make a static screen and I'll toss that over to my client, and it's good enough. Well, we don't cover half of our design, so that's kind of bad. So right now, and if we see how that's shaped, then we go all the way back to tools in like the early stages, and that was that computer graphics weren't that strong. So over time, we got stronger computer graphics. And at first, of course, we had some image editing, and we couldn't do that much with browsers. So we started using Photoshop. Photoshop was this great tool that we could draw rectangles in and basically start doing designs. And it's super powerful too, but it is static. So as computer graphics evolved, we started doing like more interactive work. You had your iPhone, you can just like click something and tons of things can happen. So then this great tool came along called Sketch, and they built a really smart way to do more of like product design. So more like screens next to each other. And that's super interesting too. So they built a great tool for that, and that got really big. So suddenly all the designers that were doing products started switching to that. The problem is though that it is still based on static design. It is still based around the same concept, like coming all the way back from print design and building static images, which is not what we're designing. We're designing interactive products. So now there's also a new kid on the block called Figma. It's a great tool for collaboration especially. They do that really well. But they also are still based on the static and the idea of building a static tool. So if we look at the environment, we see that a lot of tools are benefiting from this. Like we used to do that, but like Zeppelin is like a tool for handoff. You have Principle for prototyping, Atom or like Origami for prototyping. So there are a lot of tools that are gaining their users by basically trying to tackle this problem. But they all don't really tackle it. Like some people noticed that there was something wrong, that we needed to do interactive design, but we never really solved that so far. So if we look at what we ended up with now, is that we have tools for static design, that we have tools for interactive design, that we have tools for collaboration, and that we have tools for implementation. So 4 different tools to create one end product, or one end product. So that's like so many steps that we have to take to create a really good design. And those are too many boundaries, we feel. There should be an easier tool. So we want to create the one that rules them all. So the one tool that has all the things, like normal static design, or like not static design, but focuses on interactive design from the start, then brings them to life, do collaboration, all in one place. And that's what Framer is all about right now. So I think what's the cool thing is I can just show you a little bit of how Framer works, and that should give you like maybe a little bit of an idea of how you could tie it into your process. So I'm just going to switch some things on the screen. This is hard because I have no mirror. Yes. Okay, so let's just hide this one. And let's jump into Framer. So if we jump into Framer, we see this tool, and we see this welcome window that has some nice like beginner tutorials, and on the right side you have your recent projects. So let's open up a tutorial and see how it works. So over here on the left side, we see a very familiar tool. So this looks a little bit like every design tool that we've already used. That's easy to get into. So we have artboards, rectangles, and you can just simply draw things. And then in the middle we have a big canvas that you can use to zoom, pen, anything basically. And on the right side we can do styling. Then if we jump into code, that offers interactive design. So over here we have basically tons of things that we can do with coding, insert menu, and on the right side we have preview where we can see your prototypes or like our designs. So over here we can see your end product, like this. So that's cool. So let's start a new project together to see how it works. So we will probably start with creating an artboard, just a simple artboard on an iPhone 7, for example. Let's make this window a little bit bigger. So next, what's cool is if we could just draw a rectangle. Just a simple rectangle that's like a top bar. And then maybe like we could make some squares for now, just like illustrating that there are icons, or we could just open the icon panel. And then you could drop in some icons, some random icons. So while I drop those in, our algorithm is trying to figure out how they are positioned and how they should scale. So right now, what we end up with, and what's really cool, is that this scales by default. So this is responsive by default. And that's really cool if we're designing for different devices. Another cool thing is that it is all kind of alive. So we can drop in like a GIF, and that actually works. So our design tool is starting to become this living thing. It's not just anymore like a thing that we were drawing static images with. So let me first make a little bit of a wrapper in the middle. Maybe add some border to it. And then we drop in the image. And because I sized it down, it knows now that it should be in the like wrapper layer, and that should clip probably like our image. So now if I select this and I scale it up, it is this nice image. It should probably center it. So like this. Now if we jump into code, we can see your design. So over here we see your design and it's actually working. Now if we want to do something with that, we don't actually need to write any lines of code yet. So we can just start by visual tooling. So to start it off, we need to make this layer targetable. So we need to say to code, okay, you can use this layer to add some interactions to it. So over here, I just select the layer and I give it a name. So we know how it's called in code. So for example, I call this image. Now if I jump into code, we can see that this image layer popped up there on the left side. So now I can add an event for that. Image, an event, and a click event. And now Framer just writes the code for me. So it just creates an event for Framer. And events can be anything from swipes, from pinches, to like clicks, to taps, to you name it, force touch, anything. So then we can add an animation, for example, that we want to be triggered on that event. So now we added an animation and the property panel shows up all the way on the left side here. And over there I can enter some values and that will immediately reflect in the code that I see here in the middle. So let's do that and see what happens. So for example, I would like this thing to spin 360 degrees. Just gonna do some random stuff. So now, as you can see, just as I typed that, Framer wrote the code for me without me even having to do things. And we can even manipulate that right on the canvas over here. So now, if I release this, and if I click this layer, we made our first interaction without actually having to write any lines of code. And we can do anything with this. So this can go from how Facebook Live makes smileys float to how we can create just a simple app or a simple flow. So that's cool. And talking about flows, we have some cool things around flows too. So a lot of us are working on basic onboarding flows or just trying to mock up a simple app. And they probably use InVision now for it because it's simple to put two screens together and make that a thing. But that's very low fidelity. So what's cool is that we have a flow component and you only need to initiate, like you basically create your design in Framer Design. And then basically, as soon as you jump into code, you only need to initiate a flow component, define what is like the header, and how you can like basically jump from screen to screen, which screen is which, and then you already have your prototype. So this is like 20 lines of coding, not like even, because you can basically just copy it from our website, and you will, of course, after you do this 2 times, you will know how it works, and then now you already have your prototype, and it feels way higher fidelity. So this feels almost native. And that's a really cool thing about Framer. So we believe in a future where interactive design becomes like, oh wait, yes, this. We believe in a future where interactive design is basically design at all. So it's not like a separate step of design, it is the whole design process. From the way you design to collaboration, the whole way is built around interactive prototypes or interactive designs. Just how you call it. So it will be cool to see how we go there. And I think that everybody needs to, or it will be interesting to see how we all adapt to a space that's definitely going to that direction. So as but not least, I did like a little bit of a hustling in the company and I got you like a little bit of a discount. So I don't know if it helps, but if you want to get started with Framer, the trial is free. But we also have a 25% discount. It will run for a month, I think. So you can just use it if you want to get started with Framer. And that was my talk about design tools, Framer, and everything around that.